Hey Guru Nation, welcome back to another episode of Random Musings from the Clinical Trials Guru. This is episode 73. It's a grab bag of questions I've received over the past couple of weeks, curated to some extent by me. Some of them are just completely random, so we'll read them live on the show. Once again, I'm writing solo today, but thank you everyone for listening or watching on YouTube. I just want to add, like this week and last week, today's Monday, so Friday, I usually do what I call follow-up Fridays, where everyone that I need to follow up with gets followed up with, hence the name Follow-Up Friday. I think it's important. I think it's extremely underrated. I think people glorify sales, and look, I'm a salesperson, I love sales, but there's nothing like following up, and it's not done as much because it's not as fun, right? Like sales is like hunting, and then following up is sort of like farming, right? You go water the seeds, make sure that the seeds eventually develop over time and maybe materialize into something, maybe not. But it's just very different from sales, and I think people in our industry, people don't even do a good job of sales. So if you're doing sales, that's great, you're way further ahead than everyone else. Some of these questions, you're going to see my answers the same thing. Whether you're looking for a study or a job opportunity, is clinicaltrials.gov. I mean, you have no idea how valuable that website is. I really don't think people understand. We're going to get into a little bit of that today, but follow up. Like everyone, there's no excuse. I don't care what you are, who you are, what role you're in research. I don't even care if you're not even in the industry yet. You need to get, because it's free, a CRM, which is a customer retention management tool. I don't know what it stands for, but it's CRM. You can get one. HubSpot is the one I use. It's free. You can, if you want to pay. I know some sites use Salesforce. There's so many different CRMs. You can even have an Excel file. I don't care what you do. Just have some kind of tool where you can track who your leads are, who your prospects are, and then how often you're following up with them, and maybe have it send you a reminder somehow. So that's what I use HubSpot for. I don't even pay for HubSpot. I don't get anything out of it. They're not a sponsor of the show or anything like that. But you absolutely have to have a CRM. Now, so Follow-Up Friday is something I've been doing, and I'm going to integrate a lot of those follow-up and sales related topics into this podcast. So let's just get right into the questions. Okay, and the first question, this one's at random. Let's see. Where was it? Can you give me a typical day in the life of a CRA facing challenges and providing solutions either during the study or finalizing the study? So, I don't think I'm best suited to do this. I understand it's something people want. I am a CRA, but like I keep saying, it's a very part-time role. I'm not your typical CRA road warrior that travels and has like a dozen or more sites and 2 or 3 protocols. That's not me. Okay, so my typical day in the life of a CRA is not what a traditional CRA deals with. And so I have interviewed CRAs in the past, and maybe it's time I interview one again to do follow-up. So definitely something I will do. Sahid, thank you very much for your question. Next question. Oh, by the way, if you are wanting to network with other clinical researchers, message me somehow, find me social network, whatever you want. If you want to be invited to my Slack channel, I have a Slack channel for clinical researchers that want to network. It doesn't matter if you're even in the industry yet or not, or if you're a research clinic, or if you're someone who's an entrepreneur. I don't care. Just message me if you want to network with other researchers, and you're going to see that topic come up a lot as well. Next question. I have been in a small leadership role for 2 years at a CRO. What do you think is the fastest way to become a project manager? I have a bachelor's in a non-related field, plus nursing school and 6 years of nursing experience. I am soon doing my project management course, PMP. I do not have the conventional bachelor's and master's of science. Your answer would be greatly appreciated. So it really depends what you're doing as far as, you say you're in a leadership role right now. Team leader, okay, manage over 100 nurses and tech. So the fastest way to becoming a project manager, if you're at a small to mid-sized CRO, is to talk to whomever you report to, or talk to HR, or go up to the CEO and let them know you want to be a project manager, right? Now, the worst they can do is tell you no, but that's the fastest way to do it. Another way you can do it is test the market. You can put your resume on Indeed, on Career Builder, you can go on LinkedIn and reach out to recruiters and just search for project management roles in clinical research and start applying to them. And let them tell you what you're missing, because I mean, I've never been a project manager. For our own CRO, I'm a stand-in project manager, but I've never actually been a project manager for anyone else. But it sounds like you're already there. It's just a matter of formally getting the title. So I don't think having a bachelor's in a related field is going to help you at all. I know so many project managers that I network with, that I've interacted, that I've worked for, that don't even have science-related degrees. It's all about experience, and it's all about skills. And I think you're doing good by taking your project management course. So it's just a matter of talking to where you currently are, talking to the people there, talking to HR and CEO, whomever you need to talk to. Or if you'd rather not, because I would understand if you'd rather not. Some companies are weird about that stuff, although they shouldn't be. You should test the market. Okay. Another question. Hey Dan, what do you think about sites where 95% of what they do is drugs, sometimes recreational with no therapeutic usages? I hope you're not talking about the staff using drugs. Sometimes with a therapeutic use. Most of it is cannabis, nicotine, cocaine, etc. How do these sponsors select these sites, and how come these sites do not attract sponsors? So there's studies for this stuff, right? If we've once done a study for cocaine addiction, we have one study right now at multiple sites for opioid addiction. I know sites doing studies for marijuana, so they're out there. And my favorite website, clinicaltrials.gov. Okay, go on there, search for this stuff, apply. Usually, if you're a research site and you're just sitting back and waiting for sponsors to approach you because your PI CV is fantastic, I mean, that might happen. There are a handful of sites, I would say a small minority of sites, that don't have to do any biz dev because their reputation and their experience sells itself. Now, for the vast majority of the people listening, watching, myself included, and my sites included, we don't fall into that boat. We have to go out there and hunt and get these projects. So clinicaltrials.gov, right? If you're having a hard time finding the context on there, go to clinicaltrials.gov and ZymeWire. You heard me talk about ZymeWire before. Yes, it's a paid product, doesn't cost that much. Use it. Then integrate it with a CRM and follow up regularly. You know one thing that's underrated when it comes to following up? Sending postcards. So I got I went to Bio, and I got a list of attendees, and it's in an Excel spreadsheet. And I went to Bio 2017, but if you pay for these things at these conferences, and sometimes they'll include them in the price of admission, they're going to give you something similar, either an Excel sheet listing all the delegates that were there and what their roles are, and sometimes their email addresses, or it will give you the companies that were there and then who you should contact. In my case, I got both of these. So here I have these two massive Excel files, and most of the time they have the person's contact, meaning their name, first and last name, and what role they are at the company, right? and the address of the company and the main phone number of the company, but they don't have their email address. Sometimes they have like a general inbox for business inquiries because they know when they're going to conferences that they don't want to be pitched by thousands of people after the event, right? So they put this general catch-all box. But you have the person's name, you have their company. First of all, you should go on LinkedIn and you should connect with them. If you don't have a LinkedIn, you need to get one immediately. Go to LinkedIn, connect with them. Don't spam them. Just connect, comment on things they post, like, share, build a relationship. Okay, I know it sounds crazy, but build a relationship, and then once they get to know you, then you could sell over time. It's going to take some time. You know what another thing is that nobody does, and I was just talking to Lucky, the intern, last week about this, and I really think we're going to do it, at least for the CRO projects. We are going to get more CRO business, because I have the decision maker. I have a 6,500 person Excel file with decision makers at pharma companies or industry vendors. In those cases, I can pitch them to help them with their digital marketing, because I have a social media agency for life science companies, right? But send them a postcard. You know, nobody sends postcards anymore. Everyone sends emails because it's obviously more efficient. It's quicker, it's cheaper, it takes less time. But because of that, everyone's inbox is flooded, and you'd be lucky to get a response. I mean, I have like a 30% response rate on my mass emails I send out, and that's a good response rate. Usually you get 3 to 10%, right? Like when we just cold pitch on clinicaltrials.gov, for every 100 emails we send out, we're going to get like 10 responses, and maybe 1 to 3 studies materialize from that every month. Now, whether we like those studies or not, or whether we can actually make money on those studies or not, is another story in and of itself. But that's the return rate. But you know, when it comes to getting more clients, or even for research sites, getting studies for your site, or just networking with these people, certainly for the CRO, I think this is one way we can gain people's attention, because at the end of the day, it's an attention game, right? Like, I get hundreds of emails a day at Dan at the Clinical Trials Guru, literally hundreds a day. I try to get back to all of them. You know how many postcards I get a day? 0. You know how many postcards I get a year? Close to 0. Maybe a couple at Christmas, around the holidays. So, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to add those people on LinkedIn. I'm also going to go to Zymewire, and I'm going to look up their company email structure. Usually it's first name dot last name at whatever. They all follow a specific model, and I will just guess those people's emails. And we're going to send out postcards explaining who we are, what we do, here's where you can follow me, staple a business card to it, or put my email on the bottom, or put my website on the bottom, something that I think they would find of value, okay, in that postcard. So you have to know what you're pitching for and what those people need at that time. But I'm telling you, if you send out postcards, you're going to get a good response. You're going to get noticed. So that's just a random side note I wanted to put out there. Next question. So try it. I'm going to try it too. I would like to ask for your advice on how to get a clinical research job. I'm currently residing in North Carolina. I completed my associate's degree in clinical trial. I completed my associate's degree in clinical research. The only experience I had in clinical research was during my internship at a major university, I'm not going to mention it, and at a CRO. So, why is that? You know, that's not a bad thing. You're further ahead than most people I talk to that ever joined my CRA academy. So, the fact that you don't have a bachelor's degree is going to be an issue when it comes to being a CRA. But you can be a CTA, you can be a trial master file specialist, you can be a regulatory affairs specialist, you can be a remote home-based monitor, like not a monitor that goes on site, but the assistant to the CRAs that go on site and do SDV, startup specialist. You can definitely be a study coordinator. That's what I would recommend you do. You're in a area where you can actually, and maybe leverage some of your contacts from the university and from the CRO and ask them if you can be a coordinator. Start with what you know. Nobody wants to sell to people they know because they're afraid of rejection. It's much easier to sell something to a stranger than it is to sell something to someone you know or have a relationship with, because human beings are afraid of rejection. But I think that's where you need to go. You need to go to the people you already know. You have a little sphere of influence, and you need to expand on that. On top of that, you need to go on clinicaltrials.gov as well. And you need to type in your city and state, search for actively recruiting and not yet recruiting studies, email the sponsor contacts from that study, and just manually click one study at a time. Doesn't even matter what the therapeutic indication is. If you want to only work for a particular medical condition, then you could type in your city and state followed by the medical condition that you want to work with. But it doesn't sound like you can afford to be that picky right now. You just want to get started, and I think that's the way to do it. So email everyone, literally type in Raleigh, North Carolina, studies that are actively recruiting and not yet recruiting. Then look at the studies. Then click on every single one. You're probably going to see like 300 studies, right? Go through all of them. On each one, you're going to have a sponsor, a CRO, and then the investigators. You're going to email all of them, right? For the sponsors, you're going to introduce yourself, who you are, what you want to do. You'd like to be either a study coordinator, trial master file specialist, an in-house CRA, just anything. This is my background, these are the things I've done, this is who I've worked for. I'm not entry level. I would like to get an entry level position, even though I have some experience, because this is what I want to do. And I don't know what you want to do, but you kind of need to be truthful in your email, right? You're not gaming the system here. You're not going to tell them something that they want to hear, because you don't know what they want, right? What they want is somebody, if they need somebody, to come in and do a specific task, right? So you want to leave it open. Like whatever it is that they want you to do, that's what you're going to do. Most are going to ignore you, okay? When you email the CROs, same thing. Sometimes you may or may not get the contacts. Then you could go on LinkedIn. There's ways to find out who to contact. And then there's the sites. And sometimes you can email the sites. The investigators have their phone numbers or their email addresses. So you'll find the investigators near you, email, call them. If you want to take it a step further, go to Google, search for these sites or other sites in your area, and then go in person and talk to a coordinator or talk to the office manager or the site director and see if you can get in that way. So not enough people are doing this. Like, they want the jobs, they want the experience, they want the opportunities, but they don't want to actually email 100 people a day. And you can do that. You can literally email more than 100 people a day, just from clinicaltrials.gov alone if you wanted to. So that's my advice to you. Next question. I'm interested in starting my own research site. I'm currently a monitor. I would like to know more about how to go about doing this. Okay, good question. So the first thing I would tell you is make sure you have a principal investigator, okay? The principal investigator does not have to have prior experience. They just need to be a licensed physician with a license in good standing. They don't need to be board certified. They don't need to be a specialist. As a matter of fact, I would prefer that they're not specialists when you're just starting out, so that you're not limiting yourself to just a tiny percentage of trials that you can get. You want a family practice, internal medicine, general medicine doctor, where it'll open you up to a wide variety of trials that you can then apply for all of those studies with your doctor. They don't need to be board certified at all. They just need a license in the state where your site is in. They need their license to be in good standing. I would prefer if they don't have any black marks on their license or any suspensions or anything of that nature. And you can look this all up for free yourself at your state's medical board website or medical licensing website. Just Google it, you can find it. And then preferably this PI should have his or her own private practice where they're already seeing patients, so that you'll have a patient pool for your studies. Now you don't need that last part, but it serves a very practical purpose, because if you partner with a doctor who, let's say, has all of those criteria, meets all the criteria I just mentioned, but doesn't have a private practice, then you're gonna, once you get the studies, which may or may not be a problem, eventually you will get a study. You're gonna have a hard time of getting patients in there, right? Where are these patients gonna come from? Yes, you can advertise, you can do all these things. They don't work as well as recruiting directly from the private practice of the PI. That's the best way to go about it. Sponsors prefer this site setup nowadays. This is like the complete opposite of the SMO model, where it's sort of like a cookie cutter approach. This is almost a research naive physician, and for some of these complex protocols, that's important because they have a huge patient database, right? And so then you just need an experienced study coordinator, or you need a CRA that is going to be very hands-on when it comes to monitoring the study. So that's what I would do, set that up. Another good thing about having a PI with their own private practice is they're going to have office space, hopefully, in which you can build a small research company around, right? Or within. So that's what I would do. Next question. And then getting the study is the easy part. You can hire us to do the consulting for you. We charge $1,000 a month, and we also do the feasibility surveys for you. We also create your source documents for you. We also do your standard operating procedures for you. We also negotiate your contracts and budgets, all for $1,000 a month. Or you can do all this stuff yourself for free and get studies by going to clinicaltrials.gov, my favorite website, and applying at scale for studies. Okay, next question. Hey Dan, I've been following your YouTube channel for a couple months. Thank you very much. Make sure you also go to the podcast, okay, Random Musings from the Clinical Trials Guru. And I have a question that I think you may be able to help me with. What should a CRA do when a site has low enrollment? So there's a textbook answer, which should be utilized for job interviews. And then there's a practical answer. And let me get through the textbook answer first, because I'm assuming this is a job interview question you've had. Okay, so when a site has low enrollment, the textbook answer should be you conduct a booster visit, a site booster visit, either in person or via telephone to the site. You go over what the site's doing, what's worked. Obviously, not much has worked. What hasn't worked? What are they going to do differently? Maybe share best practices from other research sites that have done well, from other sites across the country. And if you don't have any other sites that are doing well, because you're the CRA, and let's say all your sites, none of your sites are doing well, you will ask your colleagues if they have any specific sites doing well. You can look at the newsletters and see which sites are enrolling well. You can talk to the monitors from those sites and ask them to share best practices that their sites are using for you. These are the interview questions and answers. And the practical answer is everything I just said. Like, the real world answer is also everything I just said, because I do think networking with your colleagues, asking for best practices, following up with your project manager, your lead CRA, to find out which sites are doing well and what's working for them, and then communicating that effectively to your site and encouraging them to use those strategies is a good way to go. But at the end of the day, there's not much you can do as a CRA, because at the end of the day, you can't recruit patients for them. You can share, you can encourage, you can network for them with other sites through other monitors and communicate all that back to the site. But at the end of the day, you're not the one talking to the patients, you're not the one picking up the phones, you're not the ones going to lunch and learns. you can just encourage. So that's the real world answer. Somewhat depressing, but I don't think too many CRAs do the asking for best practices from other sites. I think that's something that everyone can take away from this right now, if you're a CRA in facing that situation. Here's a long question, so let's see. If you don't mind, I would like to hear your thoughts on how to start a naive first-timer site through an academic university. This is my current situation. I have an experienced PI who verbally agreed to help me start my first site, but is also an employee of a medical school. I don't want to risk leasing my own space, so I'm having a hard time closing the deal with the university hospital and accepting this offer. So first of all, let me stop you right there. I could be wrong. There could be exceptions. I have yet to encounter a physician who works for a university or a hospital that is allowed to do research on their own, right? Usually there's contracts. So the answer is you need to talk to this physician and ask them to look at their employment agreement with the university or the hospital. Most of the time, they're going to be restrictive. They're not going to allow them to do research. Much less allow them to do research privately, meaning they're the recipient, they're the payee, on hospital, university property. It just doesn't happen. I know physicians who work for big hospitals and they want to do studies on their own privately, and they don't care what their contracts say, and they go across the street and open a private clinic, hire a coordinator, and kind of run a very stealth research clinic with maybe 3 studies a year. But they're making like an extra $100K a year, so it's not bad for them. And it sort of gives them an out or another option for their career should something happen with academic research, or, I mean, you never know. I mean, look at what's going on right now with Trump and what they're discussing with Gottlieb. So, I mean, they're considering getting rid of clinical trials. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think anyone here needs to panic. But universities are usually federally funded. And so why be at the mercy of things you can't control, right? So I understand why doctors do this. But to formally set up a clinic in a university with a doctor and the hospital or university not having any problems with this is unheard of, at least by me. So your questions are all going to stem, like my answers are all going to stem from that. That is, I don't think it can be done. I think what can be done if your physician wants to do it is what I just mentioned. Start a small little site somewhere, maybe even further away from the university, and just fly under the radar. But again, I'm not encouraging you to do this. I don't want anyone losing their job over this podcast or this video. Just use common sense, okay? There's consequences to everything, okay? Any thoughts on how to negotiate with the hospital on the arrangement of using their PI? Again, I don't think it can be done. I have started my LLC and have the PI but no studies. I am thinking once I have a study, the university will take me more seriously. So there's another issue here. University, if you do it on their grounds, you're not going to be able to use a central IRB. And the entire reason why sponsors and CROs choose sites that are not affiliated with universities is because they want to use central IRBs because it's a much quicker approval time and much quicker process for everything. So chances are the sponsor already has their university sites that they're going to use, and now they want to surround the rest of the sites with central IRB studies. So that's another thing working against you. And no, the hospital is not going to take you more seriously when you have studies because it's generally not the type of studies that they want. Okay. So that's that. Hopefully it works. I mean, there's always opportunities. There's always a way to do it. Site Owner Academy. When are you starting it? So, something we've been debating internally for the last 6 months, maybe even longer, is starting a Site Owner Academy. And if anyone's listening or watching, let me know if this is something you'd be interested in. I know I've been getting a lot of emails and comments about these kind of things. So, Site Owner Academy, yes, we have thought of it. Yes, we might do it. There's just other things we're working on at the moment, but I do see it as an opportunity. I do think we can provide value for people. So yes, it's probably coming at some point. Can you do a video on what is needed to do studies for overnight stays and or inpatient studies? This is actually a really good one for, I'm going to make a separate 6 to 7 minute YouTube video right on my board. For those of you watching on YouTube, you'll see another video right after this one. But I'll give you the Cliff Notes version right now. So when you do, it depends what phase. Okay, when healthy volunteer, phase 1, whole different ball game. Okay, you need a lot of equipment, special setup, special licensings, PK. The whole thing with PKs is that can get costly, and there's a lot of equipment involved. Okay, and there's also a lot you need to do for retention from the perspective of keeping the patients involved in the study. Okay, now overnight inpatient studies for studies like insomnia or studies like schizophrenia or other studies that are not healthy volunteer that have some inpatient component can be done based on sponsor requirements. So generally the sponsor leaves these things up to the sites and to the investigators. For example, we're working on a psych study that has an inpatient component, and the monitor that came to visit us told us that from all the sites that they have in the study, none of them are using a hospital. We're the only one using a hospital. Other sites, what they're doing, they're converting rooms in nursing homes or assisted living facilities to be inpatient units. They're also converting residential facilities, like an entire house. Let's say a house with 4 bedrooms and 2 beds to each room. These houses are all over the place. Typically, they're retirement homes where people will take care of your family, your loved ones. You can rent out an entire house for the purpose of doing your study. At the end of the day, what matters is fulfilling the protocol, being able to execute the protocol. So, one of the biggest issues is, where's the IP, the investigational product, going to be stored? Is it going to be stored on site? Is it going to be stored off site and you transport it to the inpatient unit? How's that going to work? If so, in either case, what's the process? Because it's not going to be the same process. Each one has a different process. Do you transport the IP from your outpatient clinic to the unit every time a patient needs the dose? Once a week? Once the shipment comes in? How do you do it? You're probably going to have to revise your SOPs. Or if you're keeping it all at the unit, how are they going to maintain temperature logs? How are they going to look out for temperature excursions? These are things that matter, okay, to the sponsor. Another thing that they care about is the equipment you have at the inpatient unit, the staff that's involved, because typically at inpatient units, they have staff that don't do research, and so you're going to need a coordinator for it to work, to be hands-on at the inpatient unit. So I will expand on these with a little more details on the video, so go to YouTube later and check it out. So that's that. Let's see, a couple more questions. What are metrics that matter for your site? So I guess this is pertaining to all the data that CROs are using to track site performance. At the end of the day, what matters is your enrollment. How many patients did you enroll? How many completed? How many early turned? And then they get more granular. How many protocol deviations? What types of protocol deviations did you have? How long does it take you to answer queries? How long did it take you to report and finalize an SAE, serious adverse event? What are some other ones that they might look at? Sometimes they'll ask the CRA for feedback on how that site did and what they recommend them for future study. So it can definitely get granular. Oh, another thing, sometimes they keep blinded data, okay? Especially for psychiatry studies, but across the board, they're moving toward in this direction because it's easier. The technology is here to actually do this. Are your patients actually being compliant with their meds? Sometimes they track the PK of the drug, right? Like, they're going to know whether the patients are compliant. What percentage of your patients are compliant? Do you have any duplicate subjects? Are you competing with other sites in your area? These are metrics that matter. I might do another video on that as well. That sounds like a good one for YouTube. Hey, I wanted to talk to you about helping us getting studies. I saw a YouTube video on how you can help. Yep, like I said earlier, the consulting, we will do this for you. I really think we give good value for what we do. A couple more. Let's see here. Maybe one more. What is needed? No, that's it. So, thank you all for listening. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Subscribe, like, tell somebody, leave a review, follow me on social networks. Let me know if you want to be added to my Slack channel. Just ping me somewhere and I'll add you in there if you want to network with other research professionals. Alright, and thank you all for watching, listening. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.